is a good question. Well,
Wow.
That's a good question.
How do you feel about the current state of your life?
The current state of my life is great. I think I love living in LA because I can enjoy the weather every day and be outside. I like being outside a lot. I like riding my bike. So overall, the current state of my life is pretty good. Like super nice city, and I think my professional life also matters to me. And right now, I'm in school for studying for getting an engineering degree, and that's going pretty well. So overall, I'm pretty happy.
Feel considering my age and what's going on around me in the world, I feel actually kind of fortunate in some ways. But also, I'm feeling my age more. I'm feeling like I can't have as much influence as I did because I've always been an active person, and now I can't do as much. So I, again, in some ways, I feel fortunate that my life is really pretty decent, but I'm not excited.
I feel okay, not great. So much is going on. Obviously, politically, I'm very, very worried as to how this country is going to end up this coming fall. Uh, if we don't get a conservative or Trump in, shall I say, I worry very, very much about my own life because everything is going to affect our lives, all the policies or non policies. Uh, Harris has yet to give a coherent message in terms of her policies. I don't even know what she stands for, except she sounds like a Hallmark card. So I'm very, very concerned. And that has a lot to do with how everyone's feeling. Um, it's not about relationships or my personal life. It's really far beyond that. And it's affecting everyone that I know, the state of this country. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful.
I feel optimistic. I have been having a newfound emphasis on spirituality and positivity and relationships. It's less about um, accomplishing, I suppose, silly monetary goals. It's really not the direction that I've been focused on as much. I feel like I've had a spiritual reawakening, if you will, a series of epiphanies that life is much more precious and sacred than I think I was before. Perhaps that came with teenage pessimism, which I think is a natural cycle that everyone has to go through. You kind of have to get through a couple years of negative thinking and dark thoughts before you start coming to realize that life isn't so bad. Actually, stuff is pretty darn awesome. This is a great world and a great opportunity. And gosh, I personally just feel very like happy and optimistic about the future. Um, Coming from COVID, coming from a bunch of BS politics, I think people are starting to realize that that's just all nonsense to get people fighting and bickering with one another. But the true stuff that matters, like, I think there's a really good spiritual enlightenment happening, and I think I am a part of that. I feel like that's been a really positive force for me, and I want to keep with that because it's increased my happiness levels. And gosh, I don't know, I just feel optimistic.
The current state of my life is pretty good. Um, I live pretty well. I don't have any economic problems. Um, I am somewhat disturbed about some of the politics going on, as I think many people are. But overall, I think as a nation, we're doing okay. I'm concerned about what we're leaving for our children and grandchildren, and particularly regarding the uh, Women's Rights Act and things like that.
I have been feeling like I have opened up a portal of love back into my, like, pouring out of my heart, and it's like starting to envelop my world. And my 20s were not very pretty. They were pretty just crazy. Pluto and Capricorn, and then also it was my return to Saturn, and so I was coming full circle, and I was rocked to within an inch of my life. Things got so beyond turbulent. I lost myself so much that it was beyond emptiness and got into possession, and I felt possessed by a lot of, not literal, well, I felt embodied by a lot of horrible negative things. And then barely the past 3 weeks I've been going to a very good happy school, and I've been coming back to life again and reviving inside of me who I am, who I've always been my whole life. So I'm very happy. I'm very happy that I'm not going to end up being one of those older people that infantilizes their voice and tries to imitate youth, but I'm actually like starting to really feel, starting to, my muscles in my body are starting to relax. My face is starting to feel back alive. I feel blood pulsating back into my face. There are just so many things happening to me physically, and I feel like I'm finally realizing all of myself, everything that I asked the universe when I was 19 for some stuff to happen to me, and I also um, I just wanted to prepare myself. I felt like there were things that were gonna happen, and yeah, so I'm good now. I'm really good.
The current state of my life is feels very unpredictable. There's a sense of anxiousness with the future, not really certain what's going to happen. Not exactly where I want to be or where I thought I'd be at this age. There have been a lot more setbacks than I would have imagined. I feel like I'm a 24-year-old in a 43-year-old's body. I feel like a big kid still. I wouldn't say I'm unhappy with where my life is, but I'm definitely not happy about where my life is. And I'm constantly trying to improve and get ahead, but at the same time, just these small things that are keeping me held back that I didn't really expect. And the small things are seem to be major things, and it's just not really what I was expecting.
I feel that my life is on a spectrum of like good versus evil. I have a lot of I have a lot of trials that I'm going through right now personally, and there's a lot of hope within that. I don't want to get too personal, but like as someone who's on the vulnerable end of the spectrum, like someone who has went through homelessness and has gotten services, I see the hope in many programs that exist in California here for us. But there's also the other end of it where hope is very hard to get. And I would like to see my state make it more accessible for people who are on the vulnerable end of the spectrum living in California. Um, how do I feel about my current state of my life? It's growing. It's moving forward. There's always hope. It's always moving forward, but it's not exactly where I need it to be to call myself successful, to call myself completed, like done a task or succeeded a task. I I'm trying. There's a lot of things coming my way, but I feel like I have the tools to overcome the trials that I'm going through.
Oh, uh,
tentative, uh, hopeful. Uh, um, I'm old now. Um, I'm 64, older than I ever thought I'd be, and I'm no longer working, so I'm looking for a purpose. I deal with depression, so I'm currently on a combination of chemicals that seem to be working, at least better than not. And I'd say I'm tentatively hopeful. I worry a lot, uh, but that's in the present. I guess in the future, I have some hope.
The current state of my life is fantastic, man. I feel really good about it. This last, I'd say, year and a half has been a little challenging. I'm in the industry, the entertainment industry, so with strikes and everything that's happened, just a lot of gut checks and a lot of new realizations and just understandings about an overall picture. I don't tend to get hung up on the small things, so that makes a big difference now.
Oh, pretty very good. Well, I'm with a woman I really truly love, and she JoJo Joanne Walter, and I feel really pretty good. I miss my mom. My mom just died, and I'm going to miss her a lot. But I feel real good. I like where I live. I love my girlfriend. We create really good environments, and I'm just pretty happy.
It's hectic. Uh, I had to basically start a brand new business from scratch because it was hard to find work that paid anything reasonable, in California. Pretty much everything just skyrocketed in price, and what used to be livable for me just wasn't anymore. And so I basically don't stop working even for a minute. I don't remember the last time I took a full day off where I didn't have to think about work. Even if I don't have a physical job to do that day, I will be working on videos, working on advertisement, working on getting the word out to the community. And it's simply nonstop, hectic, crazy. And I think back a lot to the times when I was a kid and I used to be able to just go out, ride a bike, have no cell phone, have no ID, have nothing, just go out into the street when the sun goes down, you'd go home. And I think I'm the last generation that kind of experienced that sort of calm, and I don't think that sort of life will ever come back.
I feel pretty good actually. I was laid off of my job in October on a big layoff, and that kind of came as a bit of a shock. So I've had to adjust a little bit financially, but that's fine because thank goodness I was kind of prepared on the horizon. So I feel pretty good, and I'm super active. I have great friends. I'm out there a lot. So yeah, I'm okay. Thank goodness.
Due to the society that I'm living in, I feel it's been very uh, harassive, um, depleting, counterproductive. Um, I'm not thrilled about this society in its entirety. I feel like it's kind of the enemy, and it's working against me. Uh, so it's an uphill battle with no support, no way to turn, and no way to get a solution in this society. They don't want solutions; they want excuses. And I'm not that kind of person. I'm not an excuse taking person. I need solutions.
I feel like my life is good. I've grown up in a very loving and protected family. I have great relationships with my friends. I have a girlfriend right now. So things are going well for me. I don't have like complete direction on what I want to fully pursue as a career, but you know, I have no complaints. I feel very privileged. I feel very fortunate in my situation and also thankful too.
How do you feel about the current state of America?
I feel that the current state of America, when compared to the past, is the best it's ever been. For me, the reasoning is that we have the most prosperity uh, compared to like all time. So our economy is like, even though like some people may feel like, oh, the economy is bad, overall, I believe that it's very good, like according to the metrics. However, one thing I highly dislike about the current state of America is that a portion of the population is sort of um, underserved in some sense. So I think uh, the worst thing about the current state of America is the wealth inequality. It's one of the highest it's ever been. So we have some, in some sense, we're the highest prosperity according to certain metrics, such as GDP per capita. However, the inequality is quite drastic.
I feel the country is extremely polarized, which I don't like and I don't think is good. Uh, I mean, there probably at any point in history there are, extreme right, extreme left, racist, and all different kinds of thinking. But generally, if our democracy um, is working, it kind of balances out, and these are things that are there. The negatives are there, but they don't influence everything as much. It's like bad bacteria. We all have good bacteria, bad bacteria, and as long as the balance is in favor of the good bacteria, I can tolerate, people with different opinions and being on the other side. But when the bad bacteria gets to be too much, we get an infection. And it's the same thing in the country. When the feelings of racism or anti-immigrant thinking gets so strong, and the scapegoating, then I get worried. I get worried because it has recently, and I'm afraid it will increase in the near future, turn into violence. And I don't want to see that.
Pretty bad. Right now, it's been the most divisive that I can ever recall. Um, One must understand the racial divisiveness, in my opinion, began with Barack Obama. He initially accused the Clintons of racism while he was running for president, if you recall. It was stunning. And after he became president, there was a great divide that he kept stoking for racial divide. Bring that into our present situation where you have Biden, who took office 4 years ago and overturned everything that was working in this country, including energy independence, including the border, which he flew open the walls to everybody's just coming in. Um, it's really in chaos. Our country is in major chaos, and it's quite frightening, actually. So, the state of this country is in need of a lot of help, not only culturally, politically, just generally, psychologically. It's all in decline. So we worry. My friends and I worry about this very much, uh, and we're experiencing it every day.
I think I think everyone is falling for propaganda. This may be an unpopular opinion, but I think everyone is guilty of not doing enough self-reflection. I think this has to do with all the political parties, not one. We're all guilty of some hive mind thinking, and I don't think we're actually showing up to the table with good intentions all the time and wanting to heal. I think everyone's guilty of this, but the good news is we can all heal together. Like, there actually is so much emphasis on good if we choose to focus on it. I know it's much easier to get caught up in the petty differences and try to blame some other group or people or some other reason for problems we may be experiencing. Um, I think we need to be healthier as a country. I think we're not putting enough emphasis on good habits, healthy eating, like living in balance with nature, and then also physically taking care of ourselves. I think not everyone wants to hear it in America, but we could all hit the gym a little and eat a tiny bit less candy and just a tiny bit less junk food. I've noticed that adult Americans are somewhat scared of vegetables, and they really shouldn't be. They're delicious and healthy. So there are just little things that I know we can do that seem silly, but I genuinely think like if we have good healthy habits and we come to the table assuming positive intent from the other side, when it's really easy to not assume that, I feel like we'd be much better off because truly we have so much more in common than we do with differences. So getting caught up in the little details and that sort of BS, it's a distraction, and I think like a lot of people in America are falling for it right now, but there's a great opportunity to end that and end this on a more positive note, people. So forget about politics, forget about like sides, forget about all that stuff. We are humans, and at the end of the day, we love each other, and we got too much in common to be doing bad shit.
The current state of America, I feel that economically, considering everything we've been through and where we are right now, we've done pretty well because I look at places like China that was were doing amazingly well, and they've fallen behind. Russia, evidently, with their economic and war problems, they've fallen behind. So I feel like while we're not perfect economically, we're doing okay. I feel that politically, we need a lot of improvement in a lot of areas. I feel like we don't have the best candidates running for president for either party. I feel the Supreme Court is really messed up and needs a lot of work. And I think we should put a term limit on senators and House of Representative people and get a different mix in the top layer of our government. And that might help us see things from a different angle and be a little more progressive in the right areas.
I think everything's gonna be fine. I hate to get racial, I really do, but growing up in Silver Lake and Atwater, I grew up with a lot of very happy white people, and I've never experienced white depravity before. And the white people that I grew up with were like Gwen Stefani. They have soul in their eyes, and like you seem like you have a soul and you're happy and you're nice. But as of late, I think it's I know we all agree, as people from Northeast LA, there's been a lot of inbred podunk white trash trying really hard to be LA, and I've never experienced people that you can scream at them in their face and tell them the train is going to come and run you over, and they're just like, so I've that rose up. It's like all the pustules of this country popped and spread, but I am young and I am feeling, I'm telling you now, there is this, it's not even an undertow anymore. It's starting to like become, I feel it becoming now mainstream. And there's going to be this huge revival of everything. A lot of Zers, which I'm a millennial, Zers are after me, all of them have shops online. They all sell stuff. They all have so much experience with uh, the economy. My generation is doing pretty good. My generation is a very, very happy generation. A lot of my friends, I want to say all my friends, but maybe one or two are kind of dealing with some stuff, but all my friends are doing great. So I think I know a lot of white people are prone to manic depression and chemical disbalances and dismal thinking and stuff like that. But honestly, like that's just people that are just, they're in their own little trip, but the world is going to move on. The world moves on. Our species is very resilient and very positive. So I think we're going to be good.
My feelings on the current state of America are not good. I We are at a really interesting time. I can definitely say that it's interesting, and it's going to be memorable, but it's not good. I think we have a political system that doesn't work, and I think it's been designed that way to keep us pitted against each other and constantly feuding so that we're not looking at who's really in charge and who's really making the decisions, because we're constantly fighting with each other about things like racism or the LGBT issue, like just all these things that we hear so much about. I think it's just being constantly, it's just fuel to the fire so that we keep feuding with each other, and it's causing our society's collapsing basically. And it's sad walking on the street and seeing people and seeing what how society's like the cities have decayed, and it's really sad, and it's all done by intention. It's done by design this way. This didn't just happen. It's intentional. And who did it exactly? I'm not really sure, but I think it's the same group of people who have caused every other problem in the world. And they're to blame for the chaos that we see. It's chaos. It's complete chaos, I think.
Ooh, the current state of America. We are definitely in a transition, and I don't know if many of us, I know I'm not, educated enough on history to know what to expect is what to come. They say that, if you don't educate yourself on history, history will repeat itself. And I kind of think that's where we're in the position of right now, what we're seeing being done. A lot of things were left unfinished, such as like obtaining equality and many things on the liberal end of the spectrum that I believe in. Like it's there's a lot of things that are left unfinished, and I think we're seeing the heat of it in this election coming up. We are in a state where it's not hopeless. I don't believe that it's hopeless because I feel so privileged to be an American, and we have all of these resources and services that are available for us, especially if you're in the vulnerable population. Um, I I do believe that there's hope. That's the state that we're in right now. We're in the state between a rock and a hard place, but I do see a lot of hope.
To be honest, I'm terribly worried about the state of America. I'm trying to think of something that isn't a cliche, but there's a lot of division. I think there's a lot of pessimism, and I think it's warranted. Um, we're in a tough period of time, and I think a lot of it has to do with the way technology has changed the way we communicate, and how and the the rapidity of the communication, and how and the distortion of things, and I'm kind of worried about it. We have an election coming up that I'm scared to death about, but I do have a little bit of hope. That might tell you who I'm possibly voting for, but but I only have a little bit of hope because half the country wants somebody who I don't want. That's all I can say. Yeah.
The current state of America. Well, I feel like it's there's a lot of people that they like feeling angry, and so that anger perpetuates a whole lot of negative vibrations and energy, and that's very easy to spread through the various platforms. Social media helps spread a lot of that. The various media outlets, news outlets, help to spread a lot of that negativity. I think people thrive off of it, and especially in America, um, it's almost become like just a way of life. I think it's just a pendulum swinging one way, and it is about to swing the other way again. And hopefully that'll give some kind of a medium ground, a medium place, where it's not as intense anymore, but it's a little it's a little interesting.
Well, I feel very frightened that Trump could get in office because if he does, that will mean we're going to be in a dictatorship. And then there's Project 2025, which takes away Social Security, takes women's rights away. We're all going to be subject to Trump's imperial rule. So I'm very frightened for this country. Now, what we must do is fight, 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 and just to keep vigilant and elect a Democrat, not Trump.
I don't love it. Um, I I can't think back to a time when there was a if we're talking politics or in general life, you know, I look at the elections over the last few years. I look at the politicians in general. I look at how everything's going, and it's not something that I see in a positive light, even a little bit. Especially, I've never had a politician that resonated with me or my views or anything my entire life, and so I don't believe that the the population, the community is actually being taken care of in a way that is uh, what's the term I'm looking for? Like for the people. It's never been essentially for the people in my mind. It's always been this like everyone's farming us for our labor, our time, our money, just in general everything. And I don't like that feeling. I would like to feel like I can just live my life normally and calmly.
A little more concerned about the current state of America than I am about my personal situation. I question. I'm for good or bad. I follow politics and listen to a lot of podcasts, and I'm concerned about. Generally, I think America's healthy, but I think that there is this increasing divide, and I feel like that divide gets bigger and bigger and more precarious. And I worry, how can we ever come back from where we are right now?
You want me to be real honest? This is a satanic, demonic entity that's poisoning the world with its behaviors and way of going about things. It's an abomination.
I feel like America is still the best country to live in. I do believe that there is a lot of division in our two political parties, and especially since we're very close to a new election, it's kind of all I'm hearing lately. And as someone who isn't a very political person, it's kind of a little frustrating to just constantly see both parties bashing each other. And I mean, as I'm on social media too, it's all I'm really seeing. So my mind is just occupied by all these uh, arguments and disagreements happening between our political system. And it seems like there's just a lot of people that don't know what they're talking about, making claims and people feeding into these claims online. So it's an interesting time that we're living in.
How do you feel about the current state of the world?
So, about the current state of the world, I'll say two things. The first thing I'll say that we live in one of the most peaceful times ever. And the second thing is that we are doing the most harm to planet Earth in the most harm in human history. So let's start the first one, about how peaceful these times are. So if you take a 10-year average on the amount of wars that are happening on Earth, we're actually in one of the most peaceful times, because think about it, when you go back into the past, there's like the Vietnam War, Afghanistan War, there's like the Iraq War, World War One, World War Two. We've been in so many wars when we go back into the past. However, when you take a 10-year average around now, like there are some wars currently going on, but the casualties are far fewer compared to how it was in the past. So we're in a quite peaceful time, in my opinion. On the other hand, we're doing the most harm to planet Earth in all of human history, right? So we've chosen a primarily car-based transportation system, which is responsible for 25% of all CO2 emissions. And we also are sort of a consumerist society as a world, like this, some with some small exceptions in certain countries, but primarily people on Earth love consuming, and it's sometimes unnecessary, right? So I think that in terms of the negative impact we've had on Earth, the current state isn't super good in that sense. We've also lost, we're currently at an all-time low for the amount of land that is wild on Earth. So once you get those back, it's very hard to recover. So yeah, that's my thought. Those are my thoughts.
Well, if I felt somewhat helpless about the state of the country, I feel even more helpless about the state of the world, because I can't influence it as much, obviously. And there are pockets around the world that are just very depressing in how people are suffering, like in Gaza or Sudan or Haiti. And I can probably name other places. So things seem to be sharpening up in many countries where they are turning to the extreme right, usually not the extreme left, but it doesn't feel real hopeful, and the tensions are increasing. And most of all, I don't want to see another world war. I don't want to see the fighting that's going on right now. I don't want to see that expanded or growing. Right now, I'm not sure. I can't tell whether it's going in that direction or not.
The current state of the world is, well, it depends on which region you're speaking about. I could start with the Islamification of Europe. Look at the problems the UK is having. It's outrageous. Look at the war in Ukraine and Russia. Look at Israel and Hamas. I mean, there is such strife and chaos going on in the world right now. And what always has worried me is that we don't have an administration that really understands how to help. Afghanistan was a pure disaster. The state of the world is also frightening. It's also lends one to a lot of grief and stress. Um, I don't believe I ever recall our country ever not fully supporting Israel in every capacity, except this one. And this is a very important fight that's going on there. So, generally speaking, there are these horrible problem spots in the world, but they're just getting bigger and wider and more dangerous because there's always a potential nuclear war.
Well, let's ignore the multiple wars and conflicts going on and ask a large, philosophical question: can we pass this test? Let's say God has given us a glimpse of the technology and the prosperity that we can have with all this innovation and technology and wonder. Now the question is, can we value our fellow humans enough to bring everybody up to actually be able to use this wonderful technology and learn these wonderful skills and participate in art and reach spiritual enlightenment, whatever your goals may be, or humanity's goals may be? Are we going to take our resources and become a compassionate species that brings the rest of everybody up, or are we going to, pull up the ladder behind us, metaphorically, and not allow people to have skin in the game, to have time to follow arts and develop themselves? I think we're at this wonderful moment with technology where if we fuck this up as humans, I'm not sure if we deserve all this wonderful prosperity that we have, because we're starting to reach a culminating point where, if we don't have some sort of spiritual enlightenment and start being more compassionate, I think we might head into corporatism that is predatory on other people for the sake of money. And the truth is, every human being needs to be considered as priceless. Otherwise, I don't think we're going to reach the next level of civilization in the Fermi paradox. So, optimistic, but we have a lot of work to do, because as of right now, there's still a lot of bad stuff going on. So, but I think we can do it.
The current state of the world is kind of scary. Um, there's a lot of activity in the Middle East. We have a lot of activity in Russia that's negative. It scares me because I think if things accelerate, we could be looking at a third world war, which I really don't want to see happen for anybody's sake. But it seems the hostilities have gotten so flagrantly hideous. Just people aren't complacent anymore. They aren't comfortable with each other. Even in politics, I mean, it's like either this or that, and then people just uh, go overboard, and I think that's very scary. I just think that affects. Uh, I think people act without thinking at times, and somebody will push that button and create a problem.
Um, Old things are falling apart. I think that it's gonna be not my generation, maybe the Z generation, but I think it's gonna be the alpha and beta generation that are gonna be part of destroying. I know things are happening now. That's a longer conversation, but that are gonna, bomb um, physical places of power, take out people in power, stuff like that. I think that will happen in like when I'm in my 70s, probably, or maybe 50s. But I think things are. I think what we're experiencing is just the ripple effects of the stress and the dying of the old, and that terror is spreading to everyone, and we're feeling that. But I am starting to be self-embodied and self-possessed, how the English would say, and I feel like I go to school with people who are 18 and 19. Trust me, the world's gonna be fine. We're gonna be fine.
The current state of the world is similar to the current state of America. It's not good. There's a war going on. There's a huge battle going on that we can't even see. I'm not just talking about Russia and Ukraine. The powers that be, I believe that we're on the brink of the political system or the people that are in charge of us. It's going to be changing soon, and they know it. And so they're in a desperate attempt to save the old system where they benefit, but the people don't benefit. And if anything, you can call them like the wealthy 1%. Those are the people that are in charge. They're the ones that control the system, and they know that this system is collapsing. So they're at a desperate. They're desperate to keep it holding together so that they can continue to prosper and be rich and be in charge and everything. And I think again, it's all done by design, and it's chaos everywhere. And the people who are suffering are us, the 99% who aren't part of that class of people, that bloodline, who own everything and control everything. It's not a good state. I think we're spoiled here in the United States, even though I live in Los Angeles and it's chaos everywhere and it's disgusting out there some days. We're still in a better place than a lot of people in the world. So we have that to be thankful for. But our life has gotten progressively worse every year, and we're still have a lot to be thankful for. But life was much better like 10 years ago, and it's unfortunate because our quality of life is suffering, and but we still have it better than most people in the world.
The current state of the world, it's not it's almost how I feel about America. Like it's not completely hopeless, but we are in turmoil. There's a lot of very scary things that are going on in the world, such as in Palestine, such as in China, such as in the continent of Africa, Congo, Sudan, all of these places that are under warfare. And we are kind of like it's almost like whack-a-mole. Like, we have one problem and maybe we address it, but then there's another problem over here, climate change and all of these things that are just keep happening that are affecting us as human beings. The state of the world is not hopeless because there are so many people, Gen Z and millennials, that are really, trying to um, come up with movements to change the world. But I only see it from the perspective of an American. I don't have any other scope to look at the world as. So if it sounds a little biased, it's because I haven't been on other parts of the world to like see how things are run. But I do believe that there's a lot of hope because we have the energy of millennials and Gen Zs and people from other decades that are really getting with the movement of change. We need change, and I think we're we have a lot of specific groups that help in specific areas, like from equality to, like I mentioned before, climate change. We're not hopeless, but we're definitely in turmoil.
As bad or possibly worse than I feel about the way the United States is right now. There is so much. It almost feels like something that was supposed to be sort of like an Enlightenment idea that was spreading across the world has gotten old and feeble, and people are turning their backs on it now. And I don't know what it is that they're reaching towards, but it doesn't seem like anything good. And there's this kind of they tell me there's this authoritarian sort of thing happening everywhere, and there's so many ugly conflicts. And if we had something like World War II or World War One now, I don't see I don't see anybody rallying around like we did back then. I don't see it. It's like there are too many factions and everybody's separate. Uh, I'm worried. I'm worried.
The current state of the world. I do a bit of traveling, and the current state of the world is a lot different than the current state of the United States. There's a lot less. The places I go, at least, I tend to stick to the Caribbean. The places I go, there's a lot less stress. I think we place a lot of undue stress on ourselves in this country, trying to live up to somebody else's expectations. And going abroad, you don't find that quite as much. So the current state of the world, as far as I can see it, there's a lot less to be negative about than people behave. So, I mean, take that for how you want it, man. The current state of the world is how you make it. It's how you view it. That's the current state of everything. How you want to take things on a day-to-day basis. What you want, you will bring to you. If you want negativity, you'll bring it to you. If you want positivity, that can also come to you. It's just a matter of really what you place your focus on. So the thing that I've found is the most engaging is negativity. Positivity doesn't receive nearly as much engagement, which is why you see a lot more negativity and issues and turmoil. But the actual reality of it is that's just to get engagement. That's not the way it is. There's a lot of things that are going on that are really positive and very uplifting. And should you choose to engage in those things, you'll find that your life takes a very different path. But if you choose to stay on a path that is just easy, and negativity is very easy. The easiest thing in the world to do is wake up and be in a bad mood. It doesn't require any effort. You can just allow every little thing to put you in a bad place. Again, I think it's just a matter of the pendulum swinging kind of one way or the other, and what people choose to really focus on isn't necessarily the reality of the day-to-day life. I've been out as far as Southeast Asia, and it's interesting because there's a whole culture out there that doesn't focus on the past, nor do they focus on the future. They focus on the present, which is why Thailand especially is known as just the land of smiles. And that is an incredible way of going forward in life, to not think about your past because it causes depression because you can't change it, and to not think about your future because that causes anxiety because you can't affect it. It's to focus on the present, which is where you find your happiness.
All right, I'm really not too concerned about the world, unless I'll have to move out of the country because if Trump becomes president. move to Uruguay where it's cheaper to live?
The world, dystopian. Starting this business, I saw a lot of just how rapid everything is moving right now. It's way too fast. It just seems like massive corporations everywhere, massive advertising, extreme use of AI that just makes everything move insanely fast, and it makes my brain feel pain. And I see it with everybody else too, that you don't really have any sense. It's kind of a theme I'm hitting again. It's just calm. There's no peace. There's no relaxation. Maybe some people found it, but being in this park today, I haven't been in a park, hanging out in a long time. It's mostly just at home or working or something in between.
That is even a little bit more precarious in my mind than just the state of the country. I am concerned that I see a lot of hard right political developments in Europe and throughout the world, Africa, Israel. Like, we are not specifically in the middle of the Israel Hamas war, but we're certainly involved in it. And Ukraine and Russia worries me a great deal. I was very, very happy to see that the hard right was defeated and became more compromised in France. But I worry a little bit that that's an anomaly, although Britain kind of pulled through okay too. But I am concerned about that because I feel like, again, the factions get worse and worse. And as these wars develop, inevitably we get involved because we are such a superpower. But I worry about being pulled deeper into situations that are not good for us.
Well, I know there's other places in the world that are far better than being here, but I think this country again has poisoned everything out there that it can, and it will continue to, and that it's a losing proposition. However, there is one way that we can save ourselves, literally, savior, because we know, and if we do know who's in control of everything, we can make it through. We can get through.
Good question. Well, obviously, there is a lot of turmoil right now. I think this, in my lifetime, this is the most war that I've experienced between different countries, especially in Europe. I think that, especially if things don't get resolved soon, it's just going to get worse, and we're going to be on a more downward trend in terms of our our world and the affairs that's going on. And I think it's very important that us as a country remain strong with our foreign policy and keeps kind of like the order of things in check.
How do you feel about the future state of America?
I think that America, for almost all of its history, has had a overall positive trajectory. So I think that that remains true to this day. So I think the future of America is bright because we're always progressing. There's always like a clash between people who want to progress and people who like it the way it is. And there's always marginal gains in the progressive direction. So all the progress we've done in the past, I think, has made America better. So hopefully we keep going in a positive direction. And I think that one thing that sort of worries me about the future of America is we have a lot of like paperwork involved and some unnecessary government regulation that makes it hard to keep up with like technology. So currently, China is one. So one could consider China as a threat to America because they're able to advance their technology far faster compared to the U.S. So maybe that's something we have to think about and see if we need to cut back on some government regulation to be able to advance our nation in a faster way. So it's something we have to decide as a society.
I can answer that question a little better after November. Uh, but I'm very worried about the election because there's every indication that one candidate is not going to accept the outcome unless he wins. And to me, that's very important um, because while I think our democracy is um, very imperfect, it's become clearer how deficient it is in so many ways. Nevertheless, there's some basic stuff that's been there through most of my life, and I worry in the future that it might not be there.
I'll be very honest with you. Grim. I have been a Democrat most of my life. I was a liberal most of my life. I began to change over time because I really believe the Democrats have gone so far left, I can no longer relate. I'm going to vote for Trump this coming election because I truly believe, firmly, wholeheartedly, he's the only person that's going to keep this country going. The border, he'll shut down the border again, hopefully. Um, we'll start drilling for oil. We'll continue the fracking. We'll do all the things that will make this country flourish again and thrive. And that's what we need. And also, we have to stop this race card because every time people disagree with others' opinion, they call them racist. This has got to shut down in this country because it's destroying everybody. It really is. It's making enemies of everybody. And there's no need for it. So, right now, I'm worried, but you're looking at a voter here on a Trump voter, all the way, 100%, and hopefully he will turn this country around again.
Well, we as a population are somewhat unhealthy, so I feel a little bit concerned because I really begrudgingly want to say I think America might be having some problems with their moderation, from alcohol to social media to food to drugs to substances to whatever it is. I feel like maybe Americans as of right now don't know how to coexist and have balance, so it makes me a little bit concerned. It's interesting because I feel like a lot of what is spouted on news and propaganda is to get you to become agitated and have discourse between your like fellow colleagues, but it's interesting. If you go out into the world with a good heart, I notice the world is much more positive than what the news like makes it out to be. So I feel like if you're really plugged in, there might be this preconceived notion that everybody out there is evil. But I think that's just the highlight reel that we're being shown all the time to get us amped up and wanting to fight with one another, and it's working for so many people. I feel like we have lost our way when we can no longer be friends with our neighbor because of a petty difference or ego or something like that. So I'm a little like I am 50-50 on America. Scared because I feel like we're abusing the gifts that we have, but if we can have a little bit of a shift in mentality, I feel like we can really get to a positive place. But gosh, I hope we can get there. Whew.
I think if we correct some of our problems, uh, we definitely can continue to be a world leader, a world power. Um, I'm concerned that with some of the things that are going on, we're losing ground in that area, and that we won't uh, be as secure. I think we're going to lose um, just. I think we're going to slip in the eyes of the world, I guess, and we won't have the same posture, the same credibility, and I think that will hurt us. And as as for how I see it, it scares me a little bit because I would like to see us continue, although that's not the historical nature of countries. Although some countries like Britain have survived quite a bit, so hopefully, we are like Britain.
fuck, man, I really see this. Oh God, this is a good question. Um, I see that there is going to be a huge need in, especially in 20 years, but these coming years, that because we've been so deprived of culture and um, mainstream pop culture because of middle American trash usurping the Hollywood through Netflix, there's been this huge deprivation of real humanity, real art in the industry. So I think in a couple of years to come, there's going to be a true, real need. But one thing is that the baton needs to be handed over to the next generation, and there's been a rift. I know in San Francisco there was this tech company that was hiring, and before they were hiring, they were actually training Latino, Black people. They were intelligently handing the baton because they knew what was coming. The industry didn't do that. And I think the industry needs to start doing that. So I see an explosion of art, a renaissance of art in um, in fusion with technology. I see economically us doing amazingly because so many people can access the economy and the internet. So many people can open up businesses. More than anything else, it's because the lame, just day to day Zer and even millennial knows how to make money online. I think we're going to be more than fine. I think we're going to do great. I really see the age of Aquarius coming to be. I think we're going to be amazing.
The future is definitely uncertain. I I really don't know, and I don't think a lot of people know, because unless the system is taken down and um, we start again with a brand new system, with the people in charge, like how this country was started. We didn't have this tyrannical government. Well, we have a tyrannical government now, and that's why this country was founded. I thought was to get away from that, the monarchy, and have a government that's for the people, and we don't have that now. And so I really don't know what the state of the. I don't want to live in fear, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer necessarily, but it doesn't look good. But at the same time, my own personal hopes and beliefs in a creator and in God, I do believe that the battle will be won. But it's not going to be won unless we put up a fight. And if we are joined together and in fighting that fight and stop fighting with each other, um, it's bleak, but I have to keep my hope and my faith in God because I think that's the only thing that will get us through it because it's beyond our control. It's a spiritual thing, I think, and it's it's an there's a lot of demonic activity, good versus evil, and that's not stuff we can necessarily control as humans. We can do our part, but ultimately it's in the hands of the Creator, the one who made everything, and He's the one who created it, so He's going to win the battle.
The future state of America is, I mean, we are, I don't want to be dismal, but it does seem like we're in trouble. Um, we have two people fighting in the election, competing in the election for president, and I don't feel that they are addressing issues that are very personal and important to me as a citizen of the United States and important to other people who are living here, whatever their status is. And we can go one route where someone's openly a racist and a bigot, or we can go the other route where someone is, maybe like, I'm a racist. I'm a bigot, but let me put this pretty veil over it to make it look better. Um, and I feel like we're kind of like a double-edged sword. We don't really have a strong person that we could elect right now. But I also think that opens the door for so many other people and organizations and other people who feel the spirit to make changes, because it doesn't take a president, it takes a country it takes a country, it takes a community, it takes people. They are the backbone. The country is the backbone, not just the president, not just people in Washington D.C., but we have voices too that can come together and speak up for what is right.
You know, I'm the worrying type, and I'm going to always think of. I always think something terrible is coming around the corner. But let me say that. Let me really work on this in my soul and say I do have hope. I have hope. Um, there's a lot riding on some decisions that we're all going to make very soon, and I'm concerned about it because it could make all the difference. And I'm hoping things are going to go well, and that's only going to be the starting point, and then we've got to keep going from there. I think there's a lot of rebuilding to do in the soul of this country. Um, that sounds so corny, but I really think it's true.
The future of America, the way I feel about my future within America is very positive. I'm looking at things through my focal point, and that's all I'm doing from here on out. I really don't like to engage with other people's fear and misinformation. And for me, that means I need to see things the way I see things and not let anything else interfere with that. So my vision for America, what I see the future of America is very positive. I think again, it's the pendulum swinging. You've got something happening on one end, it goes back to the other, and then it finds a place in the middle. Finds a place in the middle, and it's easy again to look at things and what do they say? Murphy's law. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong. Well, that's very pessimistic, and it's very shallow, and it's very basic, and it's very just limited. So the future for America, I think, is good. I think it's great. I think it's going to be outstanding. There's a lot of positive things that are happening within my own industry. This entertainment industry has now sorted itself out with the actors and with the writers, and the crew members are going to get their contracts signed coming here soon. That's going to open up a whole floodgate full of work that then employs a whole lot of other people. A lot of the stress has to do and revolves around financial situations. And so when things get better a little bit financially, you find things are a bit more positive. And I believe that's the way things are going to go towards the future, is in a very financially stable, positive way.
It depends on who's president. If Trump's president, it's a terrible future. We'll be under dictator rule. But if Joe Biden or someone is president, I feel very hopeful. I think we'll still have a democratic society that honors the Constitution, and I think things will be fine.
Not great. Like I kind of touched on in that second question, I don't see any sort of hope in, especially, I mean, I'm not going to dive into the politics of the two candidates we have, but I don't see how anyone could feel that they are being represented or uh, have some sort of connection with these people. This is not, they're not real people that we're seeing essentially, and that's who's going to be controlling the biggest economy in the world, the largest country, the most powerful country supposedly. And I don't feel like there's any control over this country, and I think it's losing power quickly because it's a fiasco on TV. We look very stupid, in my opinion. Um, we can't get just a normal human up on stage to represent us accurately. And do I feel like the economy will be stable? Hell no. It's grocery prices are insane. Can you blame that on the current administration? I don't think so. I think that's purely just companies have learned how to increase their profits from us and just get us to the point where we're surviving, but just barely. and that's just enough for them to make as much as they can off of us. We're stressing beyond belief. People's health declines. If I get sick, there's no hope for me to get proper care and affordable and anything like that. I don't believe so, at least. Maybe I'm wrong. Um, so, how do I feel about the state of the country or where the country is going? In a bad way. It truly just, I'd rather see it go in a completely different direction than it is right now. And I don't know what direction that is, but I'm not a politician, so it's kind of for them to figure out.
I definitely have my concerns. I feel like there are people that are very, very passionate and care very much about making sure that we maintain our integrity and our independence and we make good things happen and show compassion. But at the same time, I feel there are people that are equally passionate on their point of view, which is to sort of in many ways not give a shit and or control things to their particular degree without the concern or the empathy for others. So I worry about climate change, and we see how that's impacting the country. And of course, just want to go deeper into no regulation or rolling back regulations. And I feel personally, just the personalities that are grabbing hold of this country, um, the future can be scary. I'm an optimist by nature, and I'm trying to stick with that point of view, but it's not always easy.
Well, they say going to hell in a handbasket. I think you're already there. It's a way we have to now figure out how to work back and get out of the handbasket that's in hell already. So, not standing for a lot of this nonsense. Everybody has to be responsible for themselves, and being put in slavery to taking responsibility for others is absolutely unacceptable. There's people running around taking that free ride, recreating, bringing more people that don't work, aren't productive, have no purpose and no reason, and that's just bringing the herd down. And being responsible for oneself is independence, and it also gives you freedom as opposed to the slavery that this society has accepted and thrown on other countries, teaching other countries bad behavior of the free ride and not being responsible for oneself. You can be justified in that. You don't have to justify yourself by going out and taking care of everybody and everything. Uh, that's not productive and it's not helpful. Take care of yourself, stand for yourself, don't allow yourself to be taken in the sheeple and listening to what the government tells you because they're not right. They're completely adverse to God's plan and God's creation, which we are all part of. And if we choose to stay that way, then we got to do a little, walking on the coals and taking some bad times.
I'm hopeful. I think that there's still a lot of opportunity to be had in America. I think nowadays it's a lot harder than it was back in like the 70s or 80s. The whole American dream where someone could just move here and create a life for themselves, create a business, buy a house, and not have to, never worry about a place to live because cost of living is so expensive. But I think that there's still a lot of opportunity. I think it's a lot harder nowadays to find a good job. There's so many companies out there that kind of just hire based off of referrals instead of actual experienced people that they see through online applications. But um, I think the future of America, we're going to see a lot more people that are losing jobs based off of, the rise of AI and how it's going to take away jobs from, all these lower middle class kind of jobs that people need.
How do you feel about the future state of the world?
I think this is the only one where I'm going to give an actual negative answer because I'm kind of worried about the future state of the world because I'm worried that although we're aware, like maybe a subset of the world population is aware that uh, the climate change is like a really, really big problem. I think that most humans, or I should say, majority of humans, are not really pressed about this issue. I think that we're probably gonna spend many, many years coming up where we're still not prioritizing the climate change issue, and it's gonna cause very, very big problems 100 years down the line for humanity. So I'm a little bit worried about the future of Earth due to due to the harm we're doing to planet Earth.
Probably not real great, not too optimistic. I've been talking mostly about the political things and how people are hurting people, but I'm also very concerned about the environment um, and um, and global warming and what I consider a climate crisis. So that's going to exacerbate all of the political things that are going on. Um, and in that sense, I think the future will be more difficult um, than now um, because I think it'll be affected by the climate crisis, which will sharpen everything up to some degree. Um, so I'm not, I mean, it's colored a little also by how old I am. And on the one hand, and on the other hand, I have kids and grandkids, and I'm worried about them and their future.
Uncertain, very uncertain. Again, it's all dependent on who the leaders are. Bibi Netanyahu is fantastic. He's a true leader. I truly believe Trump is a true leader. If you don't like him, that's too bad. He's a great leader. His policies are great. I'm so tired of Americans, and actually, quite frankly, anybody worldwide who has opinions of world leaders that have to do with their personalities. Who cares about their personalities? Let's always have in power those people that are willing to lead and take the hits as they do lead for the sake and for the good of the world and their country.
I think we might be embracing technology in the wrong way. The washing machines and the refrigerators that our parents had in the 70s and 80s and 90s that were simple, bulletproof, easy to maintain and repair, I think that was the way. There's a certain amount where you kind of cap out on efficiency for technology. You've solved your problem. You've reduced the time, like you've done the thing, but there's absolutely no reason why your refrigerator should have like a TV on it. Sorry, I think there's a point where like planned obsolescence and an over reliance on technology is actually going to be our downfall. Like it is good to have physical books, to have old the old way of doing things, and to keep your skills sharp. If everything is digitized, if everything is convenience, if everything is Uber Eats, if there's a TV screen on every single appliance that you have, I just worry that we're going to dumb ourselves down incredibly quickly and truthfully miss out on a bunch of art. And then as that art and information, knowledge, books, everything is digitized, there will either become paywalls that exist, or it'll just get lost to time or whatever. So there's a threat of losing precious knowledge, information, culture, art, stories, everything. And I think technology is great if we use it with moderation and balance, but we don't want to turn into that Disney movie WALL-E where we're 500 pounds like floating around on these recliners with iPad screens like permanently installed in front of our faces, like drinking like from slop smoothies. That's not the direction we should go in. So it's just a balance of living harmoniously with the old world while embracing the tech of the new world.
Hmm. I I think the future of the world, we really have to think on a much more international basis, and we have to come together as the world, not as a bunch of separatists, because I really feel, and I've worked a lot internationally, I really feel the world is much bigger than Idaho or the United States or Russia. I think we have to think of this as global, and we have to become global citizens rather than citizens of this country or that state. and we have to come together to work together and achieve some sort of peace, or we're going to destroy the country, the world as we see it.
I think that we really are barely seeing the brimming sun of the age of Aquarius. I think it's going to be a beautiful time where people are united in heart. And I think technology is going to play a good part. I know that there are some benevolent powers at be that are trying to uh, take the infrastructure that was created by malevolent powers, and they're trying to like integrate it into a benevolent system. And I know I know that it's happening because a lot of young people these days they're just sick and tired of fighting and of wars. I know people from the 80s, they like to say, "Oh, we were so tough, we never cried," but a lot of them are really fucked up. They have like bad relationships and they can't face their own darkness. But kids now grew up in, especially Zers, I wouldn't say millennials. Zers grew up in so much darkness. They want to go towards the light. They want it. They're hungry for it. And my generation was spoiled with happiness. We grew up in a decade that was just like bubbles from the Powerpuff Girls. It was just so fun and so innocent. And I think that we're gonna we want that back. And I think we're gonna play a huge part in sparking it back up. And I think we're gonna be extraordinary. I think the future is gonna be extraordinary.
The state of the world, similar to America, it's questionable. We're at a breaking point where it could either go one direction, which is really bad, or one direction, which would be an entirely new system in the world. Because we're all suffering a lot, some more than others, considerably, especially those in the West compared to other countries. I believe we're all suffering, and that's all done by design. And so I really don't know, and I don't know if a lot of people know. I think there's a group of people who think it's not that bad, but I think it could have the potential to be that bad, and it's getting progressively worse. So I could very easily see it getting worse and worse and worse because I look how far we've come in the past like 10 years, and where we are now is nowhere near where I thought we'd be, 10 years ago. So the state of the world, it's bleak, it's not great, but again, I have to take all those negative feelings and channel them into something that is, trust, hope in God, the creator who made all of this, that he'll do something with it and he'll protect us because, you know, it's supernatural, I think. It's again, good versus evil. And that's not something we can control. We play our part in it, but ultimately it's in God's hands. So if he doesn't intervene, it could be potentially very bad.
The future state of the world. It's also, I'm also not trying to sound dismal, but we're in trouble. We have a lot to work on. We have a lot to come together on. We have a lot to work out. Like some certain places that really speak to me is like Congo and Sudan and Palestine and like other places like Iraq, like what we did to Iraq, and like all of these places, right? They are suffering, and people in the United States are suffering, and there just seems to be a lot of suffering around the world that we haven't um even scratched the surface to address. The future state of the world, I'm fearing a World War III. But I will just never, maybe it's my faith, but I will just never lose hope that I'll never think that it's too late for change. I'll never lose hope in change.
Again, I'm concerned. I'm concerned. Um, I mean, it makes you really realize how little influence you have over. I mean, look how little influence we have over our own lives, and then you look at the macro of it, and it makes you feel very insignificant. I know that all that stuff about the actions of each person have that effect, and I think that is true. It just sounds like a lot of work, but and it takes a lot of trust in everybody else doing what they're supposed to do too. and everybody being on this. It takes a lot of trust. I don't know if we have a lot of that now, but maybe we never did, and we still managed to do a lot of great things. I'm going to say hope. I'm going to say hope, even though I'm not sure I mean it, but I probably do mean it. Yeah, I guess I do. Hope. I hope things are going to get better. I hope.
The future of the world. The way I feel about it is that the world's going to keep going on, and whether or not I think about it and dwell on it, it's going to happen. Um, it's been a very interesting history, world history, and I don't think it's going to get any less interesting. I think it's going to stay just as interesting. I think we're entering into a very exciting time right now where we're finding out truly what we're capable of creating and whether or not those creations are going to somehow make our lives better or complicate them some more. I have a feeling they're going to make them better because we're going to find a nice, again, the swinging pendulum, a happy medium, and I think we're going into a very interesting direction.
Uh, well, I hope I'm hoping for the best. That's all I can say. I do like AI. I think if it's used correctly, that will really help populations and communication and technology. I hope we advance in technology. I hope population is controlled, and I hope immigration is controlled.
Future state of the world. Well, I can't believe that giant countries are still allowed to have wars overall. My wife is a Ukrainian woman, and there's been a war going on in her home country for the last 2.5 years that shouldn't be able to happen in the first place. This is massive countries being able to attack small ones and just spout lies and all sorts of things. And will that happen to the rest of the world? Probably, because it sets a precedent for who can just take over other places. It's they're still fighting about land, they're still fighting about resources, still fighting about this. Nobody should be essentially in combat these days, and yet half the world is in combat. What does that say about the future of the world? That people are still profiting off of war, profiting off of the populations of their country, essentially trying to control the way we consume, the way we participate in society is all basically controlled. And I don't see it going in any other way besides that we will essentially be under full control, and we're happy because we get everything from Amazon and it's right there at your door right away, and you can sit at home and consume and consume and consume, which is exactly what world leaders and massive corporations want from us, and they're getting it. You know, everybody here, this microphone that we're on, this phone that you're recording on, this tripod, it's all produced and rapidly designed to get it in your face so that you buy it. And it's just too rapid and too much and too fast, and it's just spiraling rapidly towards what I believe dystopia.
I future state of the world is also kind of iffy to me. Again, it's very strong divides, um, and kind of the rise of the hard right and the equivalent of Nazism in a lot of places. These hardcore authoritarian figures that are rising. That stuff has me very concerned. I hope it does not spill over and become bigger issues. I feel like the planet is very small. The planet's very small, and in this day and age, it's smaller than it's ever been. And everything has this kind of global impact when something happens. So I think in some ways we've been incredibly lucky that we haven't had any nuclear situations happen. And I feel like maybe the world is jittery about that. Um, but at the same time, there are people that care so much about trying to make sure it doesn't happen, and people rally. And I think at the end of the day, I hope that desire and those people that are there who want to make and keep the world a sane and healthy place, that they're the ones who um, pull through.
Well, again, People say, oh, it's going to get better. It's going to get worse, and then it will get better. And this is all in the book of prophecy. Um, so we kind of do know where we're going. Um, and we can get the how to do that by reading the book, by knowing the word, by really taking a strong hold on who and what you are, getting away from the world and its evils and its opposition to the creator God, because he is the only one. He created everything that is and will be, and if we stay in that, we will have that at the end, and it will all come through.
I'm not too sure, but yesterday one of my friends was talking to me about how if China invades Taiwan, that's going to have basically an effect, a huge effect on the stock market and basically everyone's income that they get to the stock market, because Taiwan is like the main producer of all these AI chips. So, if something like that were to happen, I think it would affect a lot of people's, you know, incomes that they invest in their money through the stock market, especially since the S&P 500 is made up of those five big companies that controls about 80% of the stock market. So if something like that were to happen, and something could happen like that, I think that a lot of us upper middle class families would find ourselves in almost a lower middle class, because of how these companies basically affect the whole stock market and control everything.